What did everyone have 1,000 years ago that nobody has now? A bit of personal space. 0.75 million people worldwide. That's 29 times less than today. Everyone had about 29 times more space and resources available for himself. It wasn't the case, of course, but having a detached house and a bit of land was common. Even if it wasn't yours and you had to work here for a local master, you still lived there, in unpolluted nature. The world was more rural. The countryside was more populated than it is now. Cities were smaller and more like towns or villages. Now each human's share is smaller by the day because of just how many we are. Work ethic. Life on the British Isles 1,000 years ago was very manual. You would build your own home, work the land for your food. Clothing was also very simple and homemade. You lived in a state of perpetual servitude to the lord who had dominion over the land you lived. Taxes were usually a mix of coin and labor. The only upward mobility for a lowborn was to get really fucking good at a craft, so that you could supply nobles with luxury goods. Then you might be able to buy some land of your own. Considering 1,000 years ago, many had very little, if anything at all. No luxuries of any kind. Health didn't exist. Long life didn't really exist. Food quality was poor. Spices were rare. To me, being miserable constantly, I would say the consistency of bad health. Today we have the ability to manage it. So I will say bad health. 1,000 years ago, people had unfiltered connection with nature, unbounded by modern distractions. They experienced time as a fluid concept, not segmented by the precision of clocks. Every person shared a sky unmarred by light pollution, revealing the universe's mysteries to all. One thing that everyone had 1,000 years ago that nobody has now is originality in the sense of being the first of its kind. Over time, inventions and discoveries become integrated into society, making the concept of originality in that sense obsolete. Worms, coming from a white guy in America. If time machines existed, they're good for plus or minus 6 months. Max. Whether you are happy with your life or not, there is literally no better time to be alive. Not everyone, but I would have loved to try different types of meat that does not exist anymore. There has to be something out there that could have rivaled our favorites today. A sense of mystery and wonder about the world around them. Back then, there were so many unexplored territories, myths, and legends that fuel people's imaginations. A very clear view of the night sky. Almost nobody alive today has ever seen what the stars actually look like with no light pollution. You have to go pretty far out. A view of the night sky without light pollution. I'd love the opportunity to see that. Unfortunately, I don't think any of us will ever get that chance again. Missing teeth, parasites, short lifespans. On a positive note, people had anonymity. Most people were completely unknown outside of their town. A high threshold for boredom. Look at any one post on our mildly interesting. Okay, now imagine making 100 hours of engaging conversation out of that. Anonymity was such a big thing that sometimes just moving towns 30 kilometers away meant starting a new life without any of the baggage you carried before. Horses. Most people outside of large cities would have owned a family horse like we do with cars. Many families would have had more than one. The ability to survive if someone else stops putting your food in a climate-controlled building for you to pick up at your convenience. Penguins in the northern hemisphere. They're actually native to our side of the world, but we killed them all in the 1800s. That weird 20-sided thing with rounded pins and holes. The one that some old lady used as a crochet or knitting frame. Living with difference in opinion longer than the attention span of a TikTok. This is due to speed of communication. Lots of skills. People knew how to make bread, beer, fix ripped clothes, etc., etc. Now we are much more specialized. I can already predict the next question. What will everyone have in 1,000 years that nobody has now? Many people had smallpox. The oldest recorded case was 3,000 years ago, but nobody has it now. Yeah. Science. Access to totally dark skies. Sure, there's still dark sites in places, but you generally have to travel hours. Apparently a shitload of time off. No microsplastics. No work stress or antidepressants. Probably less tax and no annoying influences. Work ethic, common sense. Sense of family and togetherness, community. I can keep going here. Not nobody now, but many fewer of us have a sibling that died before the age of 10. A reasonable expectation of their children and siblings not surviving to adulthood. Access to good air quality. Nowadays, almost every place is polluted to an extent. STDs. Edit. Missed that it said no one, concern about dying of old age. A shillelagh or similar weapon. Penetrative heterosexual sex resulting in the continuation of the species. I wouldn't say nobody, but most people don't get full starry nights anymore. At least one sibling or child, or both, who died before the age of 10. People doing strange, unknowable things with very, very heavy rocks. Fresh air. Organic, non-processed food. And to 3 crypt deaths. A full respect for the forces of nature in everyday living. Some working knowledge of how to survive in the wilderness. Almost anything you do day to day and take for granted. A stinky butthole and other stinky areas too. No forever chemicals and microplastics in their bodies. The ability to start fire without matches or lighters. Long attention span and quite possibly better sleep. The ability to overthrow a world government overnight. So many species of animals that are now extinct. Slaves or shackles were certainly a lot more common.